I was in the middle of buying a house and getting ready to move when suddenly my mother-in-law showed up with a crazy idea. She wanted to live with us. She'd always treated me badly, making me work like crazy whenever I visited their house. My father-in-law didn't do anything to stop her. It seemed like she wanted to move in with us just to make me work for her. Determined to stop this, I told them a surprising fact. I'm single. They were shocked, but they kept saying mean things about me. Someone who was watching got really angry. Let me introduce myself. I'm Jessica, 33 years old, and I work in a big company. My husband works there too, and we've been married for 2 years. We met at a company party, and he pursued me until I said yes. We had a good relationship, but there was one problem: his parents. Before we got married, his parents seemed nice, but things changed after the wedding. They wanted to live with us, and I was not okay with that. But it turned out they were the opposite of nice. One day, my husband and I were relaxing at home when the doorbell rang unexpectedly. My husband went to answer it, and to my surprise, it was my in-laws. They barged in without a word, taking over the living room as if they owned the place. They had a habit of making snide remarks towards me, acting entitled and disrespectful. My husband rarely stood up for me because he felt obligated to honor his parents as their only child. Despite my complaints about their behavior, he seldom intervened. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law would constantly demand things like tea in a loud and indirect way. During their unexpected visit, I had to cater to them, preparing tea and lunch, ruining our day off. This wasn't the first time they had intruded on our plans. They even had the audacity to invite us to a tea party at their place, knowing I'd be expected to do all the work. But if I didn't go, I knew she'd gossip about me later. So reluctantly, I decided to attend her tea party. I wished my husband would stand up for us, but I knew it wouldn't work. On the day of the party, we were expected to arrive early. My mother-in-law scolded us for being late, even though it wasn't entirely our fault. Then she put me to work right away, while she relaxed and watched TV. I ended up preparing all the snacks for the party, which took a long time because she demanded so much. She criticized me for being slow, even though she never made snacks herself. I finished them relatively quickly, but she never thanked me. I realized she purposely asked for more to hassle me. While my husband and father-in-law set up for the party, they didn't help with the cooking. Throughout the preparations, she made snide remarks, but I tried to ignore them. During the party, she took credit for the snacks whenever guests complimented them. It was a painful experience for me, but I'm glad you liked them. Even though she didn't help at all, she took credit for my work. Furthermore, when the discussion turned to daughters-in-law, she made up stories, saying things like, "My daughter-in-law treats me like a slave." It was very uncomfortable for me. After the tea party ended, I had to clean up everything, and she even asked me to clean the room. I felt like a maid, holding back tears. I thought to myself, I'm never coming here if she calls me again. But life wasn't that easy. The tea party seemed to be a big hit and became a regular event, especially since many said they loved the snacks. "Jessica, there's another tea party next weekend. Please come." "But I have work that day." "You can take a day off, right?" "Are you trying to embarrass me? If you don't come, I'll make sure you get divorced." She called me unexpectedly and insisted I come. Even when I said I had work, she showed no mercy. I didn't have the courage to oppose her and felt threatened by the possibility of divorce, so I always obliged, taking days off from work. As a result, I ended up working tirelessly for these tea parties and taking frequent leaves from work, which made things uncomfortable at my workplace. Whenever I discussed this with my husband, he just said, "Come on, she doesn't mean any harm. Just let it go." He never really helped. Before I knew it, I found myself constantly pondering how to break free from this miserable life. The answer I came up with was to get a divorce. It meant separating from my husband David. Honestly, I grappled a lot with the decision. Even though I felt betrayed by David not helping me, a part of me still loved him. I didn't want to continue a life tormented primarily by my mother-in-law. By divorcing David, we would essentially become strangers, eliminating the need to interact with my in-laws. The only remaining issue was whether David would agree to the divorce. "I don't want a divorce," David said, surprised by my sudden suggestion. "I can't stand dealing with your mom anymore. You know what our relationship with her is like, right?" "I get it. But that doesn't mean we have to divorce. I love you, Jessica, and I want to be with you forever." "I feel the same, but I can't bear it any longer. How about we get a divorce on paper, live separately, but still stay in touch and maintain our relationship? What do you think?" Hesitantly, David agreed. And so, due to the malicious actions of my mother-in-law, we ended up getting a divorce. Life post-divorce was truly peaceful. Having submitted our divorce papers gave me the push to change my cell phone model and number, which stopped the incessant calls from my mother-in-law. David continued to live in our previous apartment while I rented a new one, ensuring unexpected visits from my in-laws ceased. Life without interacting with my in-laws was great, but something was missing: the married life with David. Even after the divorce, our mutual affection meant neither of us was satisfied living apart. Then an idea struck me. It was a risky plan, but I decided to give it a shot. As a first step, I immersed myself in my work more than ever before. After explaining my situation to my colleagues post-divorce, I regained their trust by dedicating myself fully to work. Eventually, I achieved savings of $500,000. Since college, I had enjoyed saving money, dreaming of buying my own home someday. Having finally saved up $500,000, I felt confident about buying a decent home. I quickly reached out to David to discuss buying our dream house. "A house? It's gonna cost a lot." "How are you going to handle that?" David asked. "Don't worry about it. I've saved up. How about we visit some show houses on our next day off?" I suggested. And so, we planned a day to visit show homes. David, amazed by my savings, expressed his gratitude, making me feel my efforts had paid off. "By the way, let's not tell your parents about the house just yet. We'll inform them when the time is right," David suggested. "Got it. Knowing them, they might make things complicated," I agreed. Reaffirming our wish to get back together, we steadily made preparations for our dream home. After some time, we visited various model houses, discussing preferences like where to have an outlet, kitchen layout, and a view of the living room. Considering future children, we kept their needs in mind. Finally, the blueprint was completed and construction began. Discussing the budget with the contractor, we made sure it stayed within $500,000. David mused as we admired the location of our new house. "I'm excited. Speaking of which, have you made up your mind about our plan?" For us to live happily in our new home, it was crucial to ensure there'd be no interference from David's parents. David needed to either convince them to keep their distance or cut ties altogether. "I'm sorry, I just can't make up my mind yet," David admitted. "You know, I'm an only child. Of course, I understand all the terrible things Mom did, but I owe her for raising me, and I'm worried about what'll happen to her if I'm not around." I couldn't forgive my in-laws, but I did understand how David felt. "Well, it's up to you, David," I replied. "I bought the house under my name, and since we're divorced, you don't have to force yourself to come here." I let him know. Now it was up to David to decide. We parted ways that day. I had some time before the new house was ready, so I got back to work and slowly prepared for the move. Regardless of David's choice, I was ready to give his parents a hard time. Either way, my plans seemed to be working out. After getting home from work one day, I continued my moving preparations. Then my phone buzzed, indicating a new message. It was from David. Good job. Seeing the message from David, I smirked. Things were looking like they'd head towards the best possible future. After a while, my dream house was completed. It turned out great, just the way I wanted it. Seeing the finished home made me realize the magnitude of this purchase. But just because the house was ready doesn't mean I was content. The real challenge was about to begin. Since I had been preparing to move even before the house was ready, the movers smoothly transported all my stuff to the new place. After the move, I went to the apartment where I used to live and where David now lived alone. I sat at the dining table in the living room and soon heard a flurry of noises from the entrance. The moment had come. David brought his parents. "It's been a while. Haven't you invited us over?" His mother complained as they headed towards the living room. As soon as they saw me, his mother exclaimed, "Jessica, we heard you were on a long business trip, but you're here. Why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Sorry about that. I just got back yesterday and was too busy to reach out," I lied. "Well, all right. But you bought a house, right, and spent a lot of money? It's pretty spacious. Maybe we should live with you," his mother suggested. "Indeed, living with you too would be more comforting," his father chimed in. "You bought the house for us, right?" I had to bite my tongue to not laugh out loud at his father's remark. David silently observed the situation. "Please take a seat. We need to discuss this," I said as I served them tea. I thought, this is the last time I'll entertain them. "Now about that new house," my mother-in-law began. "Exactly. You bought it for us, right? I'm looking forward to living with you too. But I'm single, you know," I replied. I hadn't told the in-laws that we divorced. To dodge my mother-in-law's unreasonable demands, I had lied about going on a long business trip. "Single? What do you mean? Aren't you married to David? What nonsense is this? Are you making fun of us?" They exclaimed upon hearing the truth. They were furious. "Exactly as I said. David and I are divorced, so I'm single. The house is under my name, so you can't live there. I decide who lives in my house." We never heard about any divorce, and the sudden business trip seemed fishy. "Thanks to you, I've been made a fool of. Watch your actions, young lady, and take responsibility," they scolded. "So you betrayed not just us, but David too?" "Divorcing was the right decision," they continued. When I firmly stated that I couldn't live there, my in-laws bombarded me with sarcastic remarks and complaints. Hearing this, my husband David finally lost his temper. "Enough. Stop badgering Jessica. Back off," he intervened, shocking his parents into silence. Apparently, they weren't expecting such an outburst from their own son. "The reason we were heading for a divorce in the first place was because of you two," David added firmly. "That's a cruel thing to say," David responded. "I was only thinking of Jessica. After constantly belittling her and forcing her to attend those ridiculous tea parties where she was treated like a servant, making her miserable. How is that thinking of Jessica? She's not your convenient maid. She's my cherished wife. And because of you two, our life together is a mess. Stay out of our relationship." On the day we were packing for the move, I received a message from David. "I'm really sorry for everything. I've decided to cut ties with my parents." I had thought that he didn't truly love me because he never helped out before. Hearing David's true feelings, I almost burst into tears. I was their only child, so I thought they'd be lost without me. I owed them for raising me, so I never said anything. But I've reached my limit. I'm cutting ties. Don't come near Jessica and me ever again. "Is that how you talk to your parents?" his mother protested. "People who hurt my beloved wife don't have the right to call themselves parents," David replied firmly. "Don't say that. I'll try to improve my relationship with Jessica," his mother pleaded. I didn't trust my mother-in-law's words at all. After hearing what David said, she still insisted on improving our relationship. "Do you want to hear this?" I asked, opening a voice memo on my phone and playing a recording. It was a collection of the snide remarks my mother-in-law had made to me, with a few from my father-in-law. Their faces went pale as they listened. "If you try to approach us again, I'll take this to a lawyer. That's how it is, so please leave. And by the way, we've already canceled the lease on this apartment, so showing up unannounced won't do any good," David declared, ushering his parents out, and they left dejectedly. That marked the end of our long struggle with my overbearing in-laws. Afterwards, David prepared for our move to our new home. Rumor has it that word got out in their community, and they became the talk of the town. I wondered who could have leaked it, only to find out David had told some close friends about the situation to ensure his parents wouldn't overstep their bounds again. I hadn't thought of that, so I almost gave David a standing ovation. For my part, David and I reconciled, resubmitted our marriage license, and were happily back together. The strategy one had in mind worked perfectly. Now we're comfortably settling into our dream home. It was quite an investment, and given the uncertain circumstances when we bought it, I was nervous. But living here happily with David, I feel it was worth every penny. And then, to our surprise, I was pregnant. Our future as a family of 3 in this house isn't far away. Though challenges lie ahead, we want to be good parents to our child, learning from the mistakes of David's parents.